pull this out. Not too bad. Straight down in there. It's different, but it's probably easier to actually pull it out of the box. Just coming straight up instead of trying to come up sideways. Except the foam, and it's got lots of foam on it. Foam wants to come with it, but that seems packaged pretty well. It seems like every month or so, a new 100 amp hour server rack battery is coming onto the market. But when I see the price is on sale for under $800, that catches my attention. So tonight we're going to dig into the TechCella 100 amp hour 48 volt server rack battery. So let's get started. I am really looking forward to seeing, for under $800, is this TechCella server rack battery just slapped together? Or for a budget level battery, does it have what most people would need? So this is a 48 volt, 51.2 volts nominal, 100 amp hour server rack battery. It has built-in high temp protection, low temp protection, has built-in Bluetooth. It's supposed to have grade A EV cells in it, and it comes with a 5-year warranty. So I want to dive right into this and, see how did they do? Can a sub $800 battery be used for home backup storage? You have the typical weight of about 100 pounds. Width is just shy of 17.5 inches, so it'll fit in a standard 19-inch rack. This is a 3U design, so we're at just under 5.5 inches in height, and length, including the handles, is about 20.5 inches. This does have a lot going on the front. On the far left, we have our handles for carrying. They are good, solid handles. I don't feel any movement at all when I'm carrying these. I don't feel like I'm going to drop this. We have two negative style Degson connectors. We've got the name TechCella. We have our on and off indicator, a reset switch, address dip switches. I believe they can parallel up to 15 addresses. Dry contacts. We have a run and alarm lights. We have 6 state of charge indicators. In the middle, we have our communication terminals. This can do RS-485 or CAN communication to your inverters, and they actually have a big list of different protocols and inverters they support. RS-232 for computer communication, and then they've got an A and a B battery to battery ports. We do have a display here, menu, enter, next, and escape buttons, 125 amp circuit breaker, and then we have our positive Degson connectors and our on and off switch and a ground terminal. And then since we're right here, if we turn this thing on, this switch does control the BMS, so it does supply power to the BMS. The circuit breaker supplies power to the terminals. And so we can enter and take a look at our capacity, and it came at 51%. And this actually looks like they might have 105 amp hour cells in this, which would be very nice to see. But this looks like your typical, I believe it's the JDB BMS. So we will take a closer look when we pop the hood, and we can see our individual cell breakdowns, which is very nice to be able to just see at a glance. On the right-hand side, we have the listed MAC address. So when you go to use your Bluetooth app, you can make sure that you're selecting the right battery. And then we've got a spec sticker, 51.2 volts, 100 amp hours, 5.12 kilowatt hours of storage, rated at 100 amp hours. And then they've got recommended charge and discharge currents, communication types, and then your working temperatures. On the left-hand side, you've just got some warning information, looks like a serial number, and then a spec sticker on the bottom left. And then taking a quick look one more time at the different accessories and components that come in the box. You've got your user manual, quick installation manual, their warranty policy, how to change up their communication line for the Victron style inverters. They do have some brackets that can be mounted to the side of your batteries to be able to stack them without needing a rack. We'll take a look at that in a little bit. They have 4-gauge 200°C silicone wires, which can be used to go battery to battery and parallel them together. You've got 8 little screws, which can be used for your server rack ears or your mounting brackets. We've got our server rack ears, which is good to see that they actually don't put these on the battery, because these are typically the things that end up getting bent in shipping. Comes with a ground cable, a communication cable to go battery to battery. This is a little splice connector, which is supposed to be used if you're changing up your communication cable to go to a Victron inverter. You've got 4-gauge 200°C silicone wire, 600 volt rating. I believe this is 3 feet long, and then it does have the Degson style connectors on one end and a 4-gauge lug on the other end. And then the last thing is this communication cable. So it comes with a lot of different components and accessories. So this is supposed to have EV rated cells, A rated cells. We're rated up to, I think, 6,000 cycles at 80% depth of discharge. So let's pop the top and see what's inside. All right, right off the bat, I do like seeing these covers on here. There's just something about having a protective cover over top of the cells. Having this on helps protect in the event that something pushes down on top. It's not going to short out your cells. Something else is good to see is just quality control marks from things actually being checked. All right, let's see what's underneath. Very nice. It's just clean. Everything's zip tied, and even protective tape around to bundle all your wires together. So laser welded bus bars. We've got our balance leads screwed into the center of each bus bar, which they do have that expansion bend in them. There's also silicone to make sure that these don't come undone. Looking across, we've got a temperature sensor right here. We have a nice rail system in the middle to help keep the cover from getting pushed down. All of our vents are exposed. We've got another temperature sensor in the middle of the pack here, coming down. And again, it's very clean. We've got a temperature sensor here and one as well right here. So that's kind of interesting. There's 2 up front. We've got our main positive line here. We have our BMS power line here. And then our balance lead right here. We've got silicone, making sure that everything is not going to go anywhere. It would be nice on some of these screws just to see, quality control marks, just so that we know that these have been torqued properly. What gauge wire do we have here? It feels like it's a 4-gauge wire. And looking over here, I don't know how well you can see that, but it does have a fairly significant bend to it. And then I don't see any of that silicone here on this main positive line or on this Degson connector screw here either. So that would be something that they would want to add. Let's see over here. The negative is the same. Just needs some of that to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. I do see underneath on this one, it looks like some Loctite though on the threads, on the negative, on that bottom screw. So it's possible that there's Loctite on these. It looks like there is a lock washer, but it looks like they may have added some Loctite as well. Yes, now that I look, I do see it on this bottom one as well. They have a double 6-gauge line coming off of the main negative to the BMS. And then it looks like they have another set of double 6-gauge coming off the bottom of the BMS and combining over on this main negative for the battery. So there's the sticker. Model UP16S015-K, version 1.3, 16S 100 amp hour BMS. Let's see, we've got our balance leads here, temperature sensors. Down on the bottom, those are our communication cables. I believe this one right back here is communication as well. But I do not see a pre-charge resistor on this BMS. So that's something to just be aware of. We've got our Bluetooth dongle right here. And then these blue and white leads are coming over to the power switch. I mean, this is a very clean looking battery. I mean, they've got things bundled up very nice, very tight. One other thing that I did notice was they do have epoxy board and foam sheets around the outside, but this one, it actually looks like it slid up. And I can barely push it down. It's very tight. It does not want to move. So it's in there, but at some point in time, it just didn't get pushed down all the way. Well, I did unscrew this rail in the back, and I took screenshots of 2 different cells. And when I put those into the global power decoder, this actually doesn't return who the cell manufacturer is. It does see that it's obviously 3.2 volt nominal, production date of November 12th, 2024. So these must be somewhat newer cells for this decoder to not even know what the manufacturer is. So if anybody has any idea of who manufactures these cells, drop that in the comments and help us out. Maybe even share some tools that you guys might use that might actually help decode this as well. I do want to test the high and low temperature disconnect real fast while we've got everything opened up. We'll use one of these temperature sensors right up here on top. For the low temp, I'll use a can of compressed air. For the high temp, I'll use a heat gun. So I'm just going to connect up my Chargeverter just to put some current on this right now. And I like these Degson connectors for several reasons. One, it's very simple. Push, wait for the click, and then it locks in. So that's one reason. You don't have to mess with getting wrenches or torquing anything down. But the second reason is you can't put the wrong one on the wrong terminal because it won't lock in. So click, click. Oh, and I guess I should mention on the side there's a little push button release. Push in, pull off. Nice and simple. No exposed conductors anywhere. So we've got that connected. We'll turn our BMS on and we'll turn our breaker on. And we see we've got current right here coming into the battery. Peel up our temperature sensor. And you can see our current drop down to 0. Let's see if we can get down to, so yeah, we're down to negative 19 C on temperature sensor 3. So we'll warm that up a bit. And now we're charging with 16 amps again. And then high temp, disconnected. Took a minute, and we were over 81 degrees Celsius. And now we're back up to charging again. So low and high temperature protection works. Now for mounting these, you can take them and put them in a standard, I believe it's a 19-inch rack. You can use the included mounting ears and screw them right onto the sides using the included screws, and then you can mount it right into any rack for server rack batteries. But they also include these brackets, which allow you to have a freestanding rack of batteries, and they have a little peg on top so that the battery up above can sit and lock in place and doesn't give it the ability to move. And these just have 2 screws which go right into the side on the front and the back of each side of the battery. Slide your bracket on, And these are pretty snug. Line it up with the holes. Lock it in place. It is snug, at least on this back here. Maybe I just didn't put the lid down all the way when I put it back on. Who knows? Get your one side done, flip it around, do it on the other one. Now it does look like these brackets could be a little bit bigger, because even on the back, they're wanting to bow up a little bit. So you might have to have a little persuasion to get these on. But the nice thing about these brackets is that you can make a freestanding rack with just the batteries. You don't have to buy the server rack. And since none of your terminals are exposed, you have safe connections. So this can help save you money even more because you don't have to buy a rack. You don't have to build a wooden one. You just slap the brackets on and stack your batteries up. And then you can take your included paralleling cables, wait for the click, click, click. And then your included parallel communication cable, communication B from your top battery down to communication A. And then you run your lines to your inverter. So, I mean, racks can cost you anywhere from $300 on up, depending on the size that you get. So, yeah. I do like seeing these. And it's just a nice little add. So I'm going to go through, charge these up. I'm going to do a capacity test on both of them individually. And then we'll do a couple other things before we wrap up. So while I'm topping off these batteries, letting them charge all the way up to 100%, I figured we could take a look at the Bluetooth app, see what kind of parameters these are set to, and see what kind of usability the Bluetooth app has. So if we take a look here at the manual, we can see here that there are a couple QR codes for quickly getting to your app. So I've had this app on my phone from a previous test. If we pick one of these JBD, the one that ends with the MAC address of 51 is the top, 9A is the bottom. So if we hit connect on the top one, and this is the Xiaoxiang electric app. So it says that we're up to 100% state of charge. We're at a cell over voltage protection. For some reason, I'm not seeing any cell information here. If I switch over to the parameters, there's really nothing that we can do. It's really a visibility only app. If we come back and switch to the other battery, again, 100% state of charge. And for whatever reason, it's supposed to show us all the cells on the bottom. Right now, it looks like we're at a 3.39 volt average. I like the Overkill Solar app as well as the Xiaoxiang BMS app. So we'll just open that one up. And let's see, the 5.1 is the top battery. And you've more than likely seen this app before. It's going to give us all the information. This version, I believe I did pay one time $5 to be able to access and change parameters. So we've got a cell over voltage protection, 153 millivolts. We do have cell number 8, which is peaking 13 and 16. Doesn't look like it's currently balancing right now. One cycle. So we'll go to the config, BMS, and then read. 105 amp hour cells. So 3.6 volts is full voltage, low voltage 2.7 volts. Starting balance voltage 3.4 volts. I'm used to seeing 3.45. Balancer enabled. Doesn't look like it's actually turned on for whatever reason. Balance only when charging is off. That's good. Protection values. Cell over voltage 3.65 volts. The release is 3.3. That's a big gap for a release. It almost seems like you're never going to balance out if you've got that big of a gap for the release. I'm actually going to change that to 3.5. The cell under voltage, 2.6, 3 volts. I mean, you could do a 2.8 for the under voltage, I guess. I'm less concerned with that one as I am with the over voltage. Charge current over voltage, discharge over current. So they do have settings in here for 100 up to 120 amp. So it's not going to trip at 100 amps discharge right away. We can see our over temp and under temp values. That negative 20C under temp does seem significantly low as well. Oh wait, that's discharge. Charge under temp. No, that's good. Just got to read everything. Let's write those values. Hopefully those balancers kick in. We've got 6 temperature sensors. So we saw 4 on the cells. So there's got to be 2 related to the BMS. But yeah, some of these cells really need to balance. Let's read this again. So that balancer enabled went back to off again. But yeah, I'm kind of surprised that we're not seeing balancing going on right now. A lot of these cells are over 3.4 volts, and we have more than a 30 millivolt deviation. So something's not quite right there. Let's check the other one. So let's look at 9A. 9A is the bottom one. Cell over voltage. Cell number 6 is high. We're at 83 millivolt differential, which is not too bad. I like to see them lower. And we'll read the values on this one as well. .4 balancer just is not enabled. And we're going to set the release and BMS right. And now this one's back up to charging. There we go. Now we're seeing balancing on this one. So yeah, so we'll let this thing go for a little while. I do hope that we start seeing this thing balance out more. I want to let these run for probably another 24 hours to try and get through a full balance cycle to where we're getting that differential down lower. I'll do a couple quick capacity tests and then show you the results of those, and then we will continue on. So the 2 capacity tests have completed. I use my Chargeverter to take the power from these batteries one at a time and funnel that into my main battery bank. And I hit the full rated capacity each time. The first test actually hit 100 amp hours right on the nose. The second test actually completed during our unplugged live stream, and I wasn't able to actually reach over and stop it. So what ended up happening was it discharged all the way down, the battery said to turn off, and then the voltage leveled out. So then it was high enough that the battery turned the inverter back on again and started putting a little more power into my main battery bank. And that actually ended up doing 102 or 103 amp hour discharge. Now I know that I could have gotten more capacity out of these if the BMS would be able to balance while it's not charging. That looks like it's a current limitation of this BMS in this battery. I've talked with TechCella, and that's how it is right now. They're going to investigate being able to change that. And unfortunately, I tried to use a couple of my BMS apps to disable balance while charging only, and the setting never saved. So that's something that TechCella will have to change on their BMS. So I want to run one more test that's going to be like a max output. I want to see, I could hook this up to the house and, you know, watch it slowly get used, but why not see if it can just handle its max output? Because if it can handle its max output, then it'll be able to handle the fluctuations of home usage. So we'll be using this bottom bank connected over here to my EG4 6000 XP, which will again use my Chargeverter and dump power into my main battery bank. So I did confirm with TechCella that this does have a pre-charge resistor in it. It's just built into the circuit board. I didn't actually see it. So we will actually test that right here. So we'll turn the breaker on. And then you can go ahead and watch the amp meter as I turn this BMS on. And it started low and then stepped up. And then our display over here is turned on. And really with a lot of these, the pre-charge cycle actually runs when you watch these LED tests light up. So you'll watch it kind of walk through each indicator light. That's when your pre-charge is actually occurring. So at the moment, no communications between the battery and the inverter. We'll come over here, turn on the inverter itself, and then our fans start kicking up. So I did inadvertently test the overcurrent protection. It got over 100 amps pulling out of the battery because I punched in 100 amps on the Chargeverter, not looking at 100 amps from the battery side. So it pulled more than it was supposed to, turned off, great. So I set the Chargeverter down to 90 amps, so then it should pull close to 100 out of the battery. We'll keep an eye on that, but I want to let that run for a full hour and make sure that it actually runs properly and runs at its full output for 100% of the time. So we're discharging from the battery at 100 amps on my nose. Obviously, as the voltage changes, that current will change as well. And from the inverter standpoint, 4.93 kilowatts going into the main battery bank. Current time is 5:27. So while the discharge test is running, I want to show you how this battery can communicate with different styles of inverters. So we'll look at connecting it to the EG4 6000 XP. We'll look at connecting it to the MidNite inverters. And then we'll also look at connecting it to the Victron inverters. So to change the battery protocol, we're going to come down to pack set. You see the little arrow right here, so we'll hit next and then enter. We can do RS-485 or CAN bus. I'm just going to do CAN bus, but it's going to be the same thing for both. We'll go to next and hit enter. And so we're going to scroll down until Lux Power, LXP, and hit enter. Set OK. And then we'll escape out. We'll come back in and just make sure it's still on Lux Power. Depending on how many batteries you have connected, you might need to adjust your dip switches. If it's just one, you're going to end up setting all the dip switches to down. Since we're just doing the test with one right now, we'll just set it to down. We'll take our Cat 6 cable, plug into the CAN communication port. On the inverter, we're going to plug into this bottom left battery communication port. And then on the display, we're going to go into the settings, up to option 3. Set the type to lithium ion. And then the battery brand is 6 for Lux Power. Hit enter and escape. And now we can see right there, 83%, 104 amp hours, and we're down to 82%. Nice and simple. If you wanted to use multiple batteries in parallel, you'll have to set your address switches. So for your master battery, you're going to set the first dip switch to up and all the rest to down. For the next battery, you're going to have the first switch down, second switch up, and then 3 and 4 will be down. You'll turn your BMS on, and you're going to go from your master battery, COM B, to the next battery in the string, up to COM A. And if we look at the inverter now, it says we have 209 amp hours available instead of just 104. If we wanted to do the MidNite inverters, we'd come down to our settings, and we need to go back to the pylon protocol. And you can see all the different options that there are here. And don't miss it, because you have to go back through again. So on your MidNite inverter, you're going to run a cable over to this port right here, which is your BMS communication port. I actually have to add an extension onto mine so that it'll reach. So you'll come into your MidNite app, go to settings, battery brand, set it to pylon, hit OK, and it will update with your battery information. So now you can see that we have the gauge correct. We are now at 81% stated charge on our battery. And if we swipe over to the right and look at the battery section, we can see battery brand down at the bottom is pylon, and our battery capacity is 208 amp hours. So the last inverter that we're going to look at connecting these batteries to is the Victron system. And for that, we have to make a change to a cable, because Victron doesn't have the standard pinout for CAN communication like the EG4 does and the MidNite does. And so that's where this card comes in from the packet that we received from TechCella. They actually list out the information for the pinouts, the standard colors, RS-45 and CAN pinouts, and what needs to be done in order to make the change. They actually have a QR code for a tutorial for this. So you're going to need this little terminal block and your included Cat cable. Now I'm going to use one of mine because I don't want to cut the nice Cat 6 cable. So we're going to cut the signal cable in the middle. In the middle, at the end, doesn't really matter. I'm going to cut it to the end so that I can reuse this cable for something else. So you can see under step 3, take the linking Victron cable. We use a CAN port. Victron uses pins 7 and 8. We're using pins 4 and 5, so we need to make a change. So I'm going to trim back on both sides these cables. And for our intents and purposes, you do need to make sure that you pay attention to which side is what. So one side has to be a battery, one side has to be the inverter side. I would recommend marking each one. So on one side, I'm going to put a B for battery. Yeah, it's a pretty bad B. And on the other side, I'm going to put an I for inverter. And you may want to label this cable as Victron because it has a non-standard pinout. You will be able to remember because you're going to have this little terminal block here. But it doesn't hurt to label it. So for our battery side first, we need pins 4 and 5. And I did just notice that the coloring matching is wrong on here. Should be white, orange, orange, white, green, blue, green, white, brown, brown. So don't go by the colors on here. You need to make sure that you go by the actual pinout of your cable. So in my case, on the battery side, pins 4 and 5 are the blue and the white blue. So we need those ones right here. And I'm just going to bend these back for right now. Blue is going to be your CAN high. White blue is going to be your CAN low. So pin 4 and pin 5. So you'll need to trim off some of the sheathing. And then with this terminal block, you pinch down. And what it does is it actually releases a spring on the inside. And when you release your finger, the metal contact springs up and it pinches the wire in. So let's put pin 4 on the left just to keep it straight. Pin 5 will push down and put it on the right. And once you release, it does get tight in there. And I have to fix this because it's going to drive me nuts. There we go. Once you get your wires in there, you can cut off the excess. So there's our battery side. We got our high and our low. And it might not be a bad idea just to write H and L so you can visually look at it and say, oh, this one's supposed to be my high, this one's supposed to be my low. So then we're going to do the same thing on the inverter side. And pins 7 and 8 are going to be white, brown, and brown. White, brown is going to be your high. Brown is going to be your low. So we'll trim both of these off. White brown is high, solid brown is low, and there's our cable for going from the battery to the Victron servo for our Victron system. And again, there is a video tutorial that you can watch if this doesn't help you at all. So again, we're going to come into the menu, go down to pack set, hit enter, go to CAN bus, and Victron is number 2. So we'll go down, hit enter, set OK, and then we back out. We will then take our cable with our battery side, connect into the CAN port. So unfortunately, this is not going to be easy to show you because of where my servo is located. I will put a picture up of the servo showing you where you're going to connect in, but you want to plug into the BMS CAN port with the inverter side of your cable. So I'm going to reach back here, and again, I don't know what you're going to be able to see, but we'll have on screen the remote console for Victron. You see BMS CAN says not connected, and we will hopefully get this plugged in 3, 2, 1. There we go. So we can see we have 62%, pulling 103 amps, 85 degrees, and we have a successful connection to the Victron system. So hopefully that just goes to show you that this battery can connect to multiple different inverter types, including ones that don't have standard pinouts. It's still running great. Cables are a little warm to the touch, but it's not too bad. And it figures. I grab the microphone, I grab the camera, start getting everything ready to go. It's 6:26 and everything turns off. But everything ran the entire time, as long as you remember, if you pull the BMS cable and there's communication, make sure to turn off that BMS communication on the inverter. Otherwise, it's going to shut down. But we've got a single light here. It looks like it's trying to wake itself back up. The voltage has come back up. Cables are getting a little warmer because we're pushing close to 120 amps near the end. So yeah, it's trying to discharge again, trying to eke out as much as it possibly can, but I'm just going to turn everything off. We don't need that noise. So we got down to 1% from this standpoint. It might have actually been the inverter that shut down around 42 volts, and then this sprung back up. But either way, we got an hour's worth of 100 amps. I wanted to wrap things up by talking about the pros and cons that I have with this TechCella 100 amp hour server rack battery. So for the pros, it's got a lot of features packed into really a cheaper server rack battery. I mean, you've got all the different communication options, RS485, CAN, RS232, Bluetooth. A lot of the cheaper batteries are usually missing at least one of those. It's got the Degson style connectors that are just the quick connect, click, and it's in. No exposed terminals. I really like those. And these, I don't have to worry about anything shorting out. They give you a lot in the box. I mean, you've got the battery to inverter cables, you've got the battery to battery cables, you've got the server rack ears. I mean, they give you a little junction block to be able to change the communication cable to work with a Victron inverter. I mean, that's just a small thing, but that really shows that somebody's paying attention. It really gives you a lot of options. It's got all the built-in protocols built into the display, so you can quickly change the protocols. I didn't have to turn it off and turn it back on in order to make the protocol take effect. It just worked. We got our full rated capacity on these. Could have gotten more, but we still at least got our 100 amp hour rating. The inside looked very clean and immaculate. They did a great job laying out the different components. And I like these bracket ideas. We've saw those with the MidNite batteries as well, but I really do like the freestanding bracket idea. It helps save you some money so that you don't have to buy a $300 or $500 server rack to put all these batteries in. They can just stand on top of each other. It just seems like it was well thought out. Now, over to the cons. I believe this is like the first server rack style battery that TechCella has put out. So obviously there's going to be some bumps in the road, right? I mean, the little brackets, they don't quite fit just right. My assumption is the measurements were taken before the powder coating was put on the battery. I mean, I've already talked to them about that, and they've already fixed that for their next batch. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if you could get them to send you a pair of properly sized brackets. The only other big thing that I would say is a con for me is the fact that the balancing on the BMS is only happening while charging. As soon as that first cell hits over voltage protection, it stops charging and then it stops balancing. So you could have one cell peaking up higher than the rest and have a significant differential between the cell voltage levels, but it's not going to fix itself because charging is stopped. So that's one area I think that they could look into making adjustments on. And I've already talked to TechCella about this and the brackets and everything, and they're already looking into what can be done in order to rectify those issues. Which reminds me, I had pointed out the bend in the positive power cable inside the battery, as well as the fact that there was no silicone adhesive on the connections for these bus bars. And they've already sent me pictures that they've already fixed the silicone issues. They had noticed that one themselves, and they're going to be looking into that tight 90 as well for the connection to the positive bus bars. So they're really ready and able to make whatever improvements need to be made to this battery to make sure that it is a good, high quality battery. Normally I don't talk about price in my videos because it's always changing. This battery is actually a great example of that, because when I first started recording for this video, the battery price was around $725, $730. And if we look at the TechCella website right now and scroll down, the price is now up to $825. And even jumping over to the Amazon page, it's $825 as well. And it looks like it's usually around $1,000. But I mean, that was in less than a week that the price fluctuated. But I still think it's a great competitive price for what you get for a server rack battery that's rated at 100 amp hours. I mean, was it just last year I was getting excited because the MidNite battery was right near $1,000. And that was the best deal that I had found for a server rack battery at that point. And even now we're seeing them come further and further down. So that's just exciting for me to see. Prices and options for battery storage is coming down so that we can all take our homes completely off grid. I mean, because you always can use that little extra storage power, right? So I want to thank TechCella for sending these out for my review. I look forward to seeing, the continued progress and improvements that they can make. If this is their first attempt, I can't wait to see what else they can come up with for server rack batteries. I was able to get a hold of a 5% discount code through their website, so I will make sure to list that down in the description below for anybody that might be interested. But I would encourage you, take a look, poke around on their website, take a look at this battery, tell me what you think. I'm looking forward to adding it to my current environment and letting it continue to help me get closer and closer to going 100% off-grid. So with that, I'm going to let y'all go. Y'all stay safe, stay cool, and we'll catch up with you later.